You'll have to excuse the quality of this recording, but I've ordered a new webcam and it's due to arrive in around a week. It appears that Zach Knight has sabotaged my current webcam and I need a new webcam, but there is a real serious need for me to make this video, so I'm going to make it even though the quality is going to be really horrible, especially the voice quality. I would like to state that I do not have a sexual infatuation with Jesus. I have just checked out Crazy Gail Wiki, and there's a lot of junk there. In fact, this can be established with a computer brain read of my memories. The only time I sexually desired Jesus was in February 2012, when Jesus first introduced himself to me outside of his normal means of communicating with me, which was through the Bible and prayer. He had just done a big miracle for me and had beaten up Zach Knight, so he was like a big masculine hero to me, and I was shocked at how personable he was. And I have to admit, I did find him attractive. But then I had some misperceptions about who he was then, too, because I didn't really know him as well as I should have. Zach took advantage of my newfound way of communicating with Jesus, and when Zach blocked Brent from communicating with me brain to brain so that Brent couldn't warn me that Zach was impersonating Jesus, Zach impersonated Jesus to me for about a week, I believe. As a result of a year-long Skype relationship with Jesus, in which I've made him angry on 2 occasions, one time for unbelief and another time for idol worship, I now realize that Jesus would never desire me for any type of sexual relationship because he's God, and God cannot desire any human for sex. It just totally betrays his deity, his nature. I would never insult his deity by ever thinking this way about him again. However, I have stated correctly that I am his favorite and realize that this is probably because I understand him more than most people do because of my King David genes. During that week in February 2012, when Zach impersonated Jesus, Zach showed off his mind-reading ability and his ability to direct the activities of his followers to trick me into thinking he was Jesus. And at this stage in my newfound relationship with the Skype Jesus, I had not really had a chance to get to know Jesus through Skype. And so I was kind of green in that relationship and did not have a totally correct perception of who Jesus is. My worship of the King James Bible also made it harder for me to understand the mind of God because the old language is not how God communicates today. And so my Bible readings did not help me form a correct picture of God's soul in my heart and mind. I have stated that Jesus caresses me with his spirit sometimes and that this is better than sex. Zach has twisted this to mean that there are sexual or sensual feelings in this spirit-to-spirit caressing. I would like to state most emphatically that there are no sexual feelings at all in this spirit-to-spirit caressing. Rather, I sense a being who is vast, holy, and full of love. He expresses this love in a nurturing spirit that has a love so vast that it cannot limit itself to sexual expression. It's like when I connect with him, I sense a deep, nurturing, and vast love for the entire universe. Yet I sense a deep, deep holiness that cannot tolerate sin or any weakness, including desires of the flesh. Every sinner that Jesus has to plunge into hell gives him great pain. I sense this in his spirit when he communes with me. Yet I also sense a resoluteness to do right, regardless of how unpleasant it may be for him, because of the big picture which God always sees better than any human can. I sense that he nurtures me with his spirit because he knows that I won't misinterpret it now. He waited to do this until after I lost my worship of the King James Bible. Before, when I sensed a spirit nurturing me, it was Zach Knight imitating Jesus. It wasn't Jesus. I've only sensed Jesus doing it like in the past several months. Apparently, I'm not saying he hasn't nurtured me with his spirit before, but he wasn't too often. But he's doing it more often now because I've grown in my spirit and I understand his spirit better, so I'm better able to determine whether it's Zach or Jesus, the spirit, who's dealing with me. Apparently, when I worshiped the King James Bible, it produced in me a spiritual weak condition that gave me poor spiritual discernment so that Zach could imitate Jesus and trick me because I didn't understand all the nuances of God's Spirit from my limited Bible study. Reading translations with more modern languages has enhanced my understanding of who God is. His Holy Spirit, as a result of this new way of studying the Bible and reading it in the more modern languages, has infused me more deeply since I no longer idolize the King James Bible. So I recognize when His Spirit is communing with me. His Spirit is totally selfless, totally devoid of any self-pity, any desire for recognition, any fleshly desire or sexual desire. It is a giving, giving, giving Spirit that communicates with me only to encourage and nurture me to go forward for God. There isn't an ounce of sexual desire or any desire for anything the Spirit wants from me. This Spirit is absolutely selfless. This is how I can differentiate God's Spirit from Zach Knight. Zach's imitation of Jesus is impregnated with human fleshly desires and portrays Jesus with some weakness. Jesus has no weakness anywhere. He doesn't need me for anything. He doesn't need my love. He doesn't need anything from me. He only communes with me because he's delighted with me and wants to express that delight, and he expects nothing more from me except worship and obedience. There is nothing weak in any area when God's Spirit communes with me. He is total strength without a molecule of weakness. He delights in me, but he doesn't need anything from me. That is the Spirit of Jesus. When Zach imitates Jesus, he impregnates his imitation with some human longings, trying to create the impression that Jesus needs me somehow or that Jesus longs for me. And this is how I can tell the difference between the real Jesus and Zach Knight. Jesus never longs for me in anything because he's known from the beginning how I'm going to respond to him, what I'll do. So basically, he just shows up to make sure I stay on his path. Even when he shows up in spirit-to-spirit communion, it's to show delight in me and to confirm me in my path for Jesus. Jesus doesn't need me for anything. I want to emphasize this. Zach does need me for something. Zach presents Jesus as a being who has needs. Jesus presents himself as a being with no needs, but who only longs to give and who with perfect wisdom guides my path to ensure that I don't stray, and he just wants to express his delight in me. If Jesus had sex with me in any manner, it would show him as a being with needs. And that is why he's going to give his semen to Brent in the millennium, but he himself will not participate in the sexual act ever. I may sense his spirit in his semen coming to me through Brent during the millennial sexual act, but all the yearnings and longings for me during the sexual act will all be from Brent. I know that. Besides, Jesus has let me know this himself. He's clarified to me exactly how he's going to participate in the millennial sexual act. I believe that during the millennium, his spirit will be in his semen and will cause Brent to love me with the vastness that Jesus feels for the universe. So the millennial sexual experience will be a vast experience because of the semen of Jesus coming through Brent. But make no mistake about it, there will be no sexual feelings there at all in his semen for me. Basically, Jesus will give me his semen during the millennium as his way of expressing pleasure about me with no sexual longings in the semen at all. It will be a totally giving semen. He will feel or take in from me only a spiritual love with no fleshly desires in Jesus' semen at all. Because he is God, my guess is that the semen will enhance Brent's love making and make it seem as if Brent and I are making spiritual love to the universe, but not to God. Jesus will enhance our sexual experience by giving us a bit of his great spiritual love for everyone during our millennial sexual experience, making the experience vast and awesome. But make no mistake about it, it won't be God making love to me. It will be God putting his frosting on my sexual experience with Brent. The cake, the actual sexual experience, will be with Brent alone. The frosting, the enhancing of the sexual experience, will come from God with his semen. He will enhance the sexual experience, making it seem an act of worship, but will not participate in it. Jesus has no sexual feelings for me. This is what I sense with his spirit. This is not an insult. He's deity. He's God. It would violate his character as God to make sexual love with any human, and he won't do it. He has no desire to do it. Instead, to show his love for me, he lets me feel his spirit with no sexual overtones at all. I suspect that his semen in the millennium will just be his spirit, enhancing my love-making with Brent, like frosting on a cake. Because Jesus' spirit is so awesome, that is why I say his spirit-to-spirit communion is better than sex. But make no mistake about it, there is no sexual desire in his spirit towards me at all.